Here I am, in the place to be. Mr. K and B, you can't fuck with me. Extra sexy, extraordinary. Palms are hairy, your mama pop. What up, y'all? K and B the Sexy Ninja here for Cplus Studios and a Paper Saber universe. Welcome to the Sexy Ninjacast, a podcast where I talk about my loves and appreciations of things, and if I watch something, I want to talk about it. If I want to motivate somebody or motivate you as a listener, or however you're watching us or listening to us, we're on YouTube, TikTok, all these great things. And this week's no different. I just watched Ant-Man because Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is just right around the corner, and I really wanted to revisit this film. Came out in 2015. I believe the end of phase 2, building up to phase 3, which was starting off with Civil War, Captain America versus Iron Man. And this movie was they announced this movie and they're like, here you go. We're doing Ant-Man with Paul Rudd. And everybody was like, Ant-Man? What? Why are we doing Ant-Man? And I'm glad they did, because Scott Lang is a character that I gel with more than I did Hank Pym being the original Ant-Man. I feel that Scott Lang's more relatable in the sense he's an ex-con in this film, gets out because he tried to he robbed these rich people and stuff like that, and it was justifiable to how he did it, in my opinion. He robbed these rich assholes and then he had to go to jail for it. And Paul Rudd is so lovable as this character, as an actor. He has so many great moments within the MCU, especially in Endgame when he finally comes out of the quantum realm and stuff like that, because the Great Rat saves his ass, And I was just like, yeah, I really want to rewatch this movie. The third one's coming up. I'm going to watch Ant-Man and the Wasp next on my thing. But I was also thinking of just doing a little Scott Lang journey, through Civil War and up to the Ant-Man and the Wasp and then Endgame and stuff like that. Then go see Quantumania, which me and Doug will watch and review. It's crazy. We're in the 20th something of these movies so far, and I'm glad that they brought Ant-Man to the table. And this movie is directed by Peyton Reed, writers Edgar Wright, who I believe was originally directing the film, and then some stuff happened, and they just had to, put in this guy Peyton Reed and stuff like that. But it stars Paul Rudd, Michael Douglas, Corey Stoll as a Yellow Jacket. We'd have our bad guy. We have the Wasp herself, Evangeline. I already said that. Lily as Hope Van Dyne. And it's just such a great cast. You got Bobby Cannavale as Paxton, as the cop who is currently, I believe, about to marry Scott Lang's wife, I believe, in the film. If I'm not, Judy Greer as Maggie Lang, Paul's ex. And you have Cassie by Abby Ryder Forston, and I'm looking at Anthony Mackie's beautiful smile. Michael Pena as Luis, and Luis. I love Luis so much. You have David as Kurt, and T.I. as Dave. His crew. This film starts off really strong in the 80s. I think it's 89. Hank Pym going to Howard Stark and being like, yo, you ain't ever getting Pym Tech. No one's getting this because he is the Ant-Man, and he's holding on to the Pym particles, all that. He's holding it on for himself because he knows it's too dangerous to get out there. Being the Ant-Man is somebody that he, with his war with his wife and everything like that, and how she got lost in the quantum realm, going subatomic with the suit itself when they were trying to stop this missile. And it's also about being a father and failing as a father and trying to earn back that respect and love that you have with your kid. And that's the way I took this movie as, with Scott. He's just trying. He gets out of prison. He works at Baskin Robbins at first. He gets fired because he's an ex-con. He had to lie to get the job, and Baskin Robbins don't play. Baskin Robbins finds out everything. So if you work at a Baskin Robbins, you best watch your ass. But he wants to connect back with his daughter Cassie, and it's very almost true, near and dear to his origins in the comic books. He
worked for Tony Stark. When he was an up model citizen, and well, not really. Not, he was in up model citizen prison because but he was really fucking smart with tech and stuff like that. And when he leaves the prison in the comic books, the warden sets him up with Tony to be like his help with security and stuff like that. So that's where he comes from, and he has a daughter named Cassie. But his sister watches the kid with her husband and stuff like that, and she gets sick. And so he, even working at Stark Industries, he couldn't. He had to find any way, anyhow, to get the surgery done. He's trying so hard, and he goes back to crime. It's his go-to because it's what he has to do. And just like this in the movie, he's trying. His mom doesn't want him around his daughter. But she's like, we'll try to figure out something with this and stuff like that. And her fiance or whatever, Paxton, he's a cop. He's an asshole. He looks at Scott in such a low light, and Scott really doesn't have anybody. He just wants his daughter. He wants to be there for his daughter. He wants to just show that what he can do, and he wants to be something. And that's why I like his relationship with Hank. And Hank tells him like, "Yo, I fucked up, with Hope, but I want you to, you have a second chance. I believe in redemption, and this is totally a redemption story from start to finish. Also a big heist movie. I remember when this movie came out, it's very different tone in the MCU itself, and that's when they started like doing these different things in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, changing it up, not your typical superhero movie, which it still is your typical superhero movie. But you have Luis, Dave, Kurt, his crew, and you have Darren Cross, who was a mentor, who was mentored by Dr. Hank Pym, played by Michael Douglas, and he feels, like he was the son that Hank never had but wanted. Hank saw a lot of promise in Darren. Also, so much promise that he kind of pushed Hope to the side after her mom dies. Doing it in quotations. He feels that guilt. Of being like, okay, well, because he sets the bar in motion for Scott to recruit Scott to stop Cross, because Cross is trying to replicate, Hank's work. So he's building the Yellow Jacket. It's basically the Ant-Man suit, so he can shrink, but he wants to sell it to the highest bidder for war. Just imagine little people shrinking down to the size of an ant or whatever, and then attacking. Going after these countries, unseen, unheard. Hank doesn't want it. Hank knew this was going to happen. He couldn't let his technology go out there. And there's so many great things with Hank in this movie that I really love, especially when he's like, this isn't some cutesy it isn't the cutesy Iron Man suit that's out there. And I'm like, damn. Because Hank and Stark used to butt heads. And I just really like Howard Stark, and Tony in some ways, but that I just love the little jabs. And Scott is just trying so hard. He's like, okay, well, when he gets fired from Baskin Robbins, he goes to Luis. He's like, hey, I'll hear about the job you're talking about. Luis sets it up. He's like, I heard it from this person, this person, this person. Great scene too. When he's like, I heard it from this person, this person, and I saw that Luis is not in the third one. So I'm kind of like, oh, I didn't see him as a credit unless he does show up in the end of the movie, because in the second movie, if I remember right, they create a security company, which they do in the comic books, but they create a security company in the second movie. He wasn't really in the second movie that much, if I don't remember, but that. But when I get to that movie, I'll get to that movie. So he goes and he wants to prove, because he has to pay child support, because his ex-wife Maggie tells him like, hey, get on your feet. Get an apartment, do this, do that, and once you get all that settled, then we'll talk about visitation rights. And he writes down a timeline, and so, he's like, fuck, I just want my daughter, and he goes to Luis, and they go set up this job with Kurt and Dave and everybody like that, and they go to Hank's house because there's a safe in there that Luis heard about, and they're like, oh, it has money and this and that. Scott gets in. Scott goes past Hank's security. Bam, blows up the safe. Nothing in it but the Ant-Man suit. So he takes the Ant-Man suit, tries it on, and he shrinks himself. And then Hank gets in his ear. He's like, hey, You're doing pretty good with this. Like, this is a test run, see how you can do, because Hank saw something in Scott from the get-go. Also, Scott's expendable, because if he has Scott go in and gets caught by Cross and dies, whatever, at least his daughter is not in the crosshairs of Cross. Because Hope is playing kind of like, because Hope and Hank's relationship is very bitter, because he even mentions it in the film, like he was on the board of directors and stuff like that. He got voted out, and the last person to vote him out was Hope. Then when Hope found out what Darren was trying to do, trying to replicate his work and create this Yellow Jacket suit and everything like that, Hope was like, oh shit. And seeing how, Darren is kind of losing his mind about it, she goes back to Hank, and Hank, they set up this plan, and they bring in, Hank brings in Scott. Hope's a little jealous, because she's like, I know that place inside out. I can wear the suit, blah, 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 blah. Trying so hard. But her dad will not let her, because her dad, in a lot of selfish ways, is just like, no, I don't want to lose you. I'm willing to lose this guy, but I'm not willing to lose you. And Scott tells Hope that, and that's when their relationship starts to mesh a little bit more, together. And there's this great part too, where they're talking about the heist and stuff like that. And of course, Hank's like, no, you're not gonna do it. And they walk out, and she's standing behind the corner, and Hank goes, man, I fucked up. There's no hope for me left, pun intended. There's nothing left for me. I understand her path, but you, Scott, you have a chance at redemption. So, and I like the heist aspect. It's really quick, and this movie's really fast. And the movie's really funny. And Luis is by far for me, next to Scott, the heart of this movie. Next with Dave and Kurt, of course, his crew. But they set up the job. Cross is on to them. He beefs up security and everything at Hank's technology, the building and stuff like that. That's about to be Cross technology. And we have some plays of Hydra and stuff like that, and all these little aspects of what Cross wants to do. He wants to sell it to the highest bidder, make a lot of money, cause, so just basically war profiting. That's what he's doing. That's what he's trying to sell the suit for. But of course, Darren Cross is a little ahead of the curve than everybody else. He knows about Hank's plan. He knows that Hank's got this plan, blah, 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 blah. And then Ant-Man gets kind of caught in there. And so it's just all out, like, it's really fast. And when they break in, the suit's going down. And then Cross is like, look, I have the actual Ant-Man suit. Hank's pissed. It's just big. It's the finale of the movie. And, of course they get out of it. Fucking Hank has a tank on his keychain, which is fucking awesome. And they get out of there, and then we have the big showdown and fight between Yellow Jacket and Ant-Man. They're fighting just so many great things with the shrinking, like little things that I just like. I never would have thought of that, because it's funny. It's also really fucking cool. Like when they have their big almost second battle on the train set in Cassie's room. And it's like they're showing it like boom, 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 boom from the little perspective. Then when they pull back, it's like, it's nothing. Like this, Ant-Man's throwing these trains at Cross, and he's like blowing up each one. It looks so like cinematically, like, oh shit. And then you pull back, you're like, oh, poof, poof, poof. And the great Thomas the Tank getting thrown and getting big size. They have an ant that gets big, and Scott kind of makes the ultimate sacrifice when he has to go. What do they call it? Subatomic. Yeah. Well, he has to go smaller. He has to go in between these little barriers, and to defeat Yellow Jacket and defeat his suit and stuff like that. So he makes that jump, and he gets caught up in the quantum realm, and he jumps in. And he's shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, and he finds a way to get out. And I like the fact that Paxton kind of like tells him in the end, after the winning, after Darren Cross is dead, everything's back to the way it needs to be. And Paxton, Maggie's fiance, and Cassie's stepdad, there's this great scene at the end on the table. and they're talking, and he's like, hey, faulty equipment, whatever. You need to be in your daughter's life, and I can't get in the way of that. I won't get in the way of that. And I laughed too because it's a really nice scene, and they're talking about Cassie doing cartwheels and stuff like that, and they're sitting there, and I'm just like, man, Paxton, I like you, but you're such an asshole. Like, you really were trying to throw this man behind bars again. Like, you wanted him to go behind bars. Like, another great scene in this movie. I know I'm jumping all over the place, but another great scene in this movie is with Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon, aka Captain fucking America, before Captain America, and Anthony Mackie, gets his ass handed to him by Scott. And my favorite part of that whole scene, my first favorite part is when they're going, and Hank's like, oh yeah, some old Stark building, this is where we're going to steal this technology that I need to use for the heist or whatever. And then Scott goes, you shit, it was the Avengers compound. Anthony Mackie comes out, and they have this really great back and forth, and then Scott gets what he needs, and he takes off, and Falcon's all, hey, no one told Captain about this, and it plays into the end when Luis tells Scott, like, hey, we heard someone's looking for you, Avenger status, looking for you. He's like, oh yeah, and he tells this great story. We got a great Stan Lee cameo, and I was like, oh, Stan, I'll miss you, Stan. And bada bing, bada boom, it's Sam Wilson. He's looking for Scott, because he's going to play a big role in the next movie, which is Captain America Civil War, aka Avengers 2.0, and where we'll see the giant man aspect of the Ant-Man suit itself, and when Peter takes him down by telling everybody, hey guys, I saw a really old movie, Empire Strikes Back, where, and I love Sam's like reaction to Tony's like, damn it, Tony, how old is this kid? So great. I really had fun with this movie again. It's been a while since I've seen it, and I really like the father aspect, the redemption part of trying. I'm a father, and the first time I saw this, it was back in 2015. It was a movie that I was like, okay, cool. Now we're going to the next adventure of this MCU. But now that I go back and I watch these movies, I have a little more sentimental value to it. Like I rewatching Wakanda Forever, I just had that lump in my throat the entire film, and I can't wait to talk about that on another podcast. But this movie, like, kind of made me tear up a little bit because it's funny, I had some the reason why like the Ant-Man like even came on the table just to rewatch, like the little backstory, is I'm at work. My coworkers are like, hey Kyle, we are trying to decide who you are inside the MCU. And I was like, I started laughing. And for me, I'm Captain America. I have to be. I'm noble, all this and that. No, they're like, you're Coulson. I was like, well, Coulson to you guys, huh? And I was like, okay, well, I fake my death to bring the Avengers together. I'm kind of the thread inside the first phase, all the way down to the last Avengers movie. Gets a TV show that kind of goes nowhere, but okay, fine. Coulson, I could see. And I told my wife. My wife got offended. She was like, hey, no way you're Coulson. I was like, oh, shit, who am I? She goes, you're Scott. I was like, wait, what? Ant-Man? I'm Scott? And she goes, yeah. She goes, you're Scott. She goes, that's the way I see you as if I had to pick somebody from the MCU. And I thought about it. I'm like, babe, I was like, you made my whole fucking day. Like, I strive to be Batman. I strive to be Green Lantern. I strive to be Captain America, like all those values and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, Scott is so relatable after watching the movie again. I was like, damn, he's just a dad trying to make better. And now that he's labeled as a hero, makes it even cooler for his daughter, Cassie. And there's just that heartbreaking scene when he gets lost in the quantum realm at the end of the next movie, and then he comes back and Cassie's older. He missed more time with her, and now we got Ant-Man Quantumania coming up, and I feel this is my a prediction, but I feel like he's gonna die. That's gonna suck. That's gonna really either he dies or he does something to let Kang out of the quantum realm. He's going to be the reason why Kang is let loose, or he's going to die stopping this version of Kang. But I feel like there's a lot of stakes going on, and this is the start of Phase 5. I believe this is where we're going all the way down to the Dynasty of Kang, all the way to Secret Wars. Now we're building towards Kang the Conqueror coming here and fucking shit up. You know, he's a time traveler, all this stuff. So the future is crazy right now with Marvel. And I'm along for the ride. And also DC just announced their stuff, so I'm just like, man, I got movies for days, movies I can go back. So I can't wait to watch Ant-Man and the Wasp, rewatch, and then talk about it here on the podcast, because I really did enjoy this watch of Ant-Man. Enjoyed it a lot more than I thought. You know, and that's just the gist of these movies, man. You just go back and you have different perspectives of things, and that's the way I look at it. You know, I always find something new to digest and think about and talk about, you know, and Scott's character himself and where he's at now, you know, in the third movie, like his journey to that point, you know, and I'm really fucking mad. I'm not mad, I'm sad, really honest, that Chadwick Boseman didn't have this journey. Yeah, the first movie, you know, he was in game. It was more in Infinity War, and you know, then the second movie's coming along and he's not there for the second one. So after rewatching Wakanda Forever again, I was just like that lump in my throat, and I'm like, man, this movie's beautiful. This movie just makes you think and just appreciate life and the loved ones around you. But that's for another time, folks. And this movie, Ant-Man, I would say out of a scale of 10, I give it a solid 7.5 out of 10. 7.5 out of 10. I probably, when I walked out of the movie theater, because I do this all the time, I walk out of the movie theater, I'm like, that was the greatest fucking movie I ever saw. Then I go and see it again, I'm like, this could have been the thing, and then, you know, kind of critiquing after that, you know, I walked out. I won't get into that. Never mind. It's going to be a whole nother fucking rant. But no, 7.5 out of 10. Ant-Man, go give it a rewatch from 2015. I'm going to go watch Ant-Man and the Wasp so we can build up to the third movie. I am excited, you know, because this is a new phase, a new beginning, new mid-credit scenes, end-credit scenes. And, what was the first one? The first one was Hope and Hank mid-credit scene where she's finally going to get her suit and be the Wasp, you know, for the next film. The end credit scene was a scene where they have Bucky in his arms caught, and Captain, they're on the run now because of the Superhero Registration Act and stuff like that. And it's Sam and Captain together, and Captain goes, "Do you know a guy?" And Sam's like, "Yeah, I know a guy, Ant-Man. That's who they're gonna get to help them with their war with Tony and everything like that." So. Great, like I said, 7.5 out of 10. Had a blast with this one. So many great scenes, so many great jokes. You know, especially in the starting. Before I go, I love in the starting. You know, we see Scott in jail, and he's fighting this guy named Peachy, and he gets his cut, and they go outside, and Luis is like, "Hey, what happened to you?" He goes, "Oh, Peachy, they got weird goodbyes. You know, this is what happened." So, and then Luis is like, "Oh yeah, I still got mine. I'm the only fool that knocked him out." You know. So, Ant-Man from 2015, the movie's PG-13, it's about an hour and 57 minutes. Just if you just want to watch something fun, you know, go check it out. I can't wait to watch the next movie because I have not seen, I think I've only seen, I've probably seen this Ant-Man at least several times. And Ant-Man and the Wasp, I probably saw once in the theater. And no, I would say twice, because usually once it comes out on physical media, then I rewatch it when it comes out. Then after that, it sits on the shelf. So I've probably seen it twice, but I really don't remember the plot. I know little things here and there that I can vaguely remember about the second movie. So can't wait to dive back in. Can't wait to see where we go with the story, especially these two characters, and seeing Scott. I love Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd's so adorable. And you know, yeah. So. That's it, doll. 7.5 out of 10. Ant-Man 2015. Go check it out. Tell me what you thought of the movie if you've seen the movie. If you tell me what was your thoughts on the whole movie. You know, did you like it? Do you think it was worthy of being the end of a phase 2 right after Age of Ultron, Avengers Age of Ultron? You know, so that's it. That's all, folks. And after that, you're going to hit that like, you're going to hit that subscribe, you're going to share it with your grandma, share it with your grandpa, share it with the bum down at Walmart. And tell them KMB, the sexy ninja, sent you. Give him a hug, too. Tell him it's going to be all right, man. It's going to be all right. Then, always remember. Whoop, whoop.
Welcome to the wicked shit.